Today we discuss Eugene O'Neill, and we know that Eugene O'Neill is one of the greatest playwrights of the world, especially one of the greatest playwrights of United States of America. And when we discuss, or rather when we watch or read and evaluate the plays of Eugene O'Neill, we understand that most of the plays of Eugene O'Neill has a lot of autobiographical elements or autobiographical significance. Today, in this lecture, we look at the autobiographical elements in Eugene O'Neill's plays. So, let us just look at the uh, autobiographical elements in the plays of Eugene O'Neill. Few artists have been as overwhelmingly and relentlessly autobiographical as was Eugene O'Neill. Again and again, he dramatized the intense love-hate relationship among his father, mother, brother, and himself, most explicitly portrayed in the posthumous Long Day's Journey into Night of 1956, one of the major works of Eugene O'Neill. These relationships and individuals are mirrored in all his plays. Almost every husband or father is James O'Neill. Every wife or mother in the plays of Eugene O'Neill are Ella. The hopelessly alcoholic brother Jamie is featured in A Moon for the Misbegotten. And of course, O'Neill himself is in most of his plays sensitive and suffering protagonist. It is O'Neill himself who is the sensitive and suffering protagonist. O'Neill, in the tradition of great autobiographical dramatists, O'Neill is not the only dramatist of the modern times who laid bare his experiences in his plays. No doubt, drama is an objective art, but some of the modern dramatists projected their self and their reminiscences in their drama. Marcel Proust and O'Neill belong to the group of subjective dramatists. In the words of John Henry Riley, although Proust and O'Neill are the clearest cases of great modern writers for whom art and autobiography are one, they are not the only ones. In Long Day's Journey into Night, the dramatist has telescoped events from his life, suppressed some facts, distorted others, invented some more, and transferred some others. He seemed to have been both simplified and heightened characters. Jami has been selected one side of himself and one side of his father. He has made his mother shadowy and insubstantial. He cut the O'Neill family off from the social connection they did have. The Iceman Cometh is an autobiographical play of Eugene O'Neill. It takes place in the year 1912, which was a period of down and outers. O'Neill exhibits in this play a group of down and outers that frequent Harry Hop's White Side Saloon in 1912. The place is described sardonically by one of the characters as the No Chance Saloon. Bedrock Bar, the end of Line Cafe, the bottom of the sea Rathskeller, Harry Hop, Larry Slade, Jimmy Tomorrow are the characters developed by the dramatist from the non-persons in his life. A Moon for the Misbegotten is another autobiographical play by Eugene O'Neill. James Tyrone Jr. is the sad and desolate elder brother of Eugene O'Neill. Here he is some years older and has been driven farther along his alcoholic path by the death of his mother. A bitter and deeply tormented man who longs for his own death. He has fallen in love with Josie Hogan, but both of them realize that he is already a corpse and no romantic no romance is possible. Josie knows that she cannot save Tyrone. It's a fine end to all my scheming, she says, with a self derisive smile, to sit here with the dead hugged to my breast and the silly mug of the moon grinning down, enjoying the joke. In this way, the play is O'Neill's real story. That is, a moon for the misbegotten is the real story of Eugene O'Neill. Now, O'Neill had always taken material from his personal life and artistically transmuted it into his plays. In the first phase of his life, he depicted realistically the life of sailors, peasants, and laborers. In the psychologically realistic plays, he had dealt with the complicated and mysterious motivations of man. In the last place, he had reinterpreted his own past and through his own personality tried to present graphically the tragic picture of man moving about in search of a home and sympathy which he had mostly missed in his life. His father, being an actor, had moved from hotel to hotel, and his mother had docilely tried to live up to the expectations of her husband. However, it would be improper to regard O'Neill only as a realist. O'Neill is not the only dramatist of the 20th century who has introduced autobiographical element in his plays. Even the followers of the theatre of the absurd have written plays with autobiographical leanings and problems. However, this new kind of subjectivism is very, very prominent in the stream of consciousness novels. Though there is no photographic representation of life in the autobiographical novels and plays, the personal experiences of the novelists provide the raw material for their imaginative writings. Since many characters of Eugene O'Neill's plays are mere projections of his own self, they are not allowed to become great powerful figures. It is, however, impossible to forget that O'Neill himself is speaking through them. It is his largeness of tragic feeling that constitutes their magnitude. However, it's not right to suppose that the artistic appeal of work of art, much less a play, depends upon autobiographical element. Samson Agonistus is a powerful and moving tragedy, but it does not appeal primarily because it's an autobiographical play in nature. Some of the last plays of Eugene O'Neill have autobiographical elements, but they need not constitute the chief source of appeal they have for the audience and reader of today. John Gassner has rightly warned the readers not to approach the long day's journey into night as primarily a drama of the O'Neill family. As family drama alone, it is patently repetitive and labored. Those who responded to it solely as a naturalistic slice of life were well entitled to their reservations. But there is more to Long Day's Journey into Night. The dramatic line of development in it includes O'Neill's introduction to a tragic view of life through youthful disenchantment. The family is the microcosm through which the artist gets his first hard look at the macrocosm. The first look is also romantic, recalling the doldrums of the lost generations of the 1890s. The young O'Neill broods on the lachrymose poetry of Ernest Dowson. But we know that the look grew harder to the course of O'Neill's career. The acute sense of human contradiction and division expressed in this play and actually expressed in most of the plays that preceded it for more than 2 decades is the final clue to O'Neill's course as a dramatist. So all this is about the autobiographical elements in Eugene O'Neill's plays. And now we are just discussing another topic in the place of Eugene O'Neill, that is the art of plot construction of Eugene O'Neill. So, or rather, we can say that O'Neill's plot construction. That is the next topic we discuss. O'Neill's plot structure reveals a total lack of dramatic sense. The drama, because of its temporal and mechanical limitations, is a medium for the expression of swift, forceful, and animated action. In O'Neill, the action consists almost entirely of a lumbering analysis of the obsessed and even insane minds of the characters in his plays. Insanity is to be found in most of his plays, and in many cases, the entire structure of the play is based on some mad obsession of one of the characters. In Gold, for example, the plot is woven around the obsession of Isaiah Bartlett that he has discovered a chest full of gold and jewels. His determination to hunt for the treasure is so great that even the sickness and subsequent death of his wife failed to move him from his purpose. Later on, he learns that the treasure is worthless, and overcome by remorse, he drops dead. Isaiah Bartlett is presented to us from the very first scene as mad. The play is an analysis of a diseased mind, a case study for psychiatrists, but it evokes no sympathy from the reader since the leading character is too far removed from the realm of common experience. The details of Isaiah and his wife are purely mechanical attempts to get at the emotions of the audience. I say mechanical because the deaths are not justified either logically or emotionally. This mechanical method of evoking an emotional response from the audience by depicting insanity, death, and suicide is characteristic of O'Neill's plays, just as it is characteristic of the melodrama in general. Perhaps the most flagrant example is that offered by Marco Millens. The author's purpose is to satirize the modern Babbitt in the person of Marco Polo. Marco is shown at the court of Grand Khan of China as a greedy, uncultured, soulless money grabber. The princess Kukachin, who is betrothed to Emperor of Persia, falls in love with Marco, and she begs the sage Khan, her father, that he be permitted to command the fleet that is to escort her to her future husband. Characteristically, Marco Polo asks for permission to trade in the ports along the way. Before the end of the voyage, Kukachin discovers the true nature of Marco, and she is overcome with disgust at his pettiness. Here the play should end. The author's purpose has been accomplished. Marco has been shown in his true colors. The businessman has been satirized. Is it not enough? But no, the audience must shed crocodile tears. The author adds another scene wherein it is shown that Kukachin, although now the wife of a man who is everything that she has been taught to love and respect, is pinning away and will soon die. The death of the princess is in no way necessary to the completion of the plot. It is literary lagniappe which spoils the play but wrings another tear from the audience. It is the O'Neill touch, the artist's signature for unjustified death and suicide and insanity to O'Neill's place what the sterling is to silver. In the trilogy, Morning becomes Electra, O'Neill's latest contribution to the drama. The stage is converted into a vertebral grave scene. Out of a total of five principal characters, four die. This play, like the rest, is based on madness. The central theme is incestuous love. It is not the incest that is occasionally found in Greek tragedy. In the Oedipus tale, for example, where the incest is accidental and the tragedy derives from the discovery that incest has been committed, nor is it the subconscious desire for incest that the Freudians regard as the primer mobile of our emotional life. In the O'Neill play, the characters have conscious desires. Christine says in this play, I know you, Winnie. I watched you ever since you were little, trying to do exactly what you are now. You have tried to become the wife of your father and the mother of Orion. You have always schemed to steal my place. And as for Orin, he makes a definite proposal to his sister Lavinia that they live together as man and wife. The reader sympathizes with the characters in the Greek story, for they are perfectly normal. But the characters in the O'Neill play are so far removed from normal experience that they can interest him only as unusual cases of abnormal psychology. It is by the use of abnormal and insane characters, violent death and suicide, that O'Neill evokes unjustified emotional response from his audience. The reader can better judge of the extent of O'Neill's use of mechanical and melodramatic violence from Barrett Clark's summary in his appreciative criticism of O'Neill. He says, of the 35 O'Neill plays I have seen or read, there are only others. I find a total of 6 suicides and 1 unsuccessful attempt, 10 important murders, not counting incidental episodes referred to in the text, 19 deaths, nearly all due to violence, and 6 cases of insanity. Mr. Clark's statement is conservative. It does not include, in the cases of insanity, those borderline cases of abnormal obsession around which so many of the plots revolve. Even in the less violent incidents of the plot, O'Neill exaggerates his effects with all the melodramatic vigor at his command. In the handling of dramatic situations and of the reversals of fortune which befall the characters, he shows all the delicacy and subtlety of a circus advertisement. He uses dramatic irony, that delicate rapier, as a shillelagh with which to cudgel his characters. He toys with them as boy plays with a fly whose wings he has torn off. Indeed, an O'Neill character has only to express a desire for something in order to get just the opposite before the end of the act. The long voyage home offers a typical example. The scene is the bar of a cheap saloon near the London waterfront. Joe, the proprietor, does a little crimping on the side. Just now he is trying to find an able-bodied seaman to ship on the Amindra for voyage around Cape Horn. His task is difficult because the ship has a bad reputation. The play is low, the food is poor, and the captain is a slave driver. Furthermore, the voyage around the Horn is a long one. Soon 4 sailors enter the bar. They have just been paid off, and all except one, Olsen the Swede, are drunk. For years, Olsen has been planning to go back to Sweden, there to settle down on a farm. But every time he had been paid off, he had squandered his money in drunken celebration. For this reason, he refuses to drink. Another thing Olsen's mother is very old now, and he is anxious to see her before she dies. Now comes the denouement. In spite of the fact that Olsen is the only one who does not want to go to sea and the only one who has a good reason for not shipping again, it is Olsen who is drugged, robbed, and then put abroad the Amindra. There is one more effect needed to make the case perfect, and O'Neill does not fail to add it. Olsen is the only one who had shipped on the Amindra before and knew of its reputation. The reversal is now complete in every detail, but does not thrill. It is so artificially perfect that it loses all suspense. Poor Olsen never had a chance. We get much the same thing in the play Beyond the Horizon. Robert Mayo, one of the dark-eyed type of male character, longs for what is beyond the horizon. He plans to go to sea in his uncle's ship. O'Neill makes him stay on the farm. Andrew Mayo loves the farm, but O'Neill forces him to sea. Andrew has loved Ruth, but she marries Robert. Needless to say, she finds out later that they are mismated and that she should have married Andrew. By the time Robert dies and Andrew and Ruth are free to marry, Andrew finds that he no longer loves her. In fact, he hates her. Have not the torturing frustrations gone far enough? No. O'Neill gives his characters another whack. He has Robert just before his death elicit from Andrew a promise that he will take care of Ruth. The play ends on the idea that Andrew will marry Ruth. And Ruth? How does she react to Andrew's implied proposal? Is she at last to know happiness? She remains silent, gazing at him dully with the sad humanity of exhaustion, with the sad humility of exhaustion, her mind already sinking back into the spent calm beyond the further troubling of any hope as the curtain falls. So everything that Andrew wants, Robert gets, and everything that Robert wants, Andrew gets, and Ruth too gets only frustration and disappointment. Here again, the complete and perfect frustration of characters destroys all suspense. The audience knows what is coming. After the first act, they can predict the action of the rest of the play. Dramatic irony is the gentle, mocking laughter of the gods. But for O'Neill, it becomes a taunting sadism. The plays I have cited are not isolated cases, for the overuse of dramatic irony to the point where it ceases to be either dramatic or ironic is just as characteristic of O'Neill as his overuse of violent death and suicide. It's another mechanical means of evoking an exaggerated emotional response from the audience, even though it sacrifices artistic unity. The audience derives pleasure from tragedy through a catharsis of purging of their emotions. The catharsis comes from reflection on the play. In melodrama, the emotional response is too violent to be satisfied in this way. There must be a more immediate satisfaction. For this reason, the happy ending is used in melodrama to so great an extent. It must not be supposed that because so many O'Neill plays end in death or suicide, that these endings are necessarily unhappy. On the contrary, almost all the plays end either happily or on an optimistic expression of hope. Lazarus Laughed ends with the hero being burned at the stake. But the ending is happy, for Lazarus is happy even while he is dying. He laughs, for he knows that is no death. In Desire, under the M's, the hero and heroine are marched off to jail for the murder of their child, but they are happy for they are now certain of their love for each other. All God's Chilam God Wings ends with the heroine becoming insane, but the ending is happy one. The insanity brings her back to her childhood days, and once again she becomes her husband's sweetheart. So too in The Great God Brown and in Beyond the Horizon, the audience gets the smug satisfaction of knowing that the hero, although he dies at the end, has triumphed and the villain has failed even while appearing to succeed. It is hardly necessary to add the villain has failed even while a number of plays such as Welded, The Straw, The Strange Interlude, and Anna Christie, where the ending is the conventional happy one of lovers meeting or being reconciled and living happily ever after. The happy ending is a necessity in the melodrama, and so it is not the wounded if O'Neill includes it in his box of tricks. He cudgels his heroes, who are projections of himself, with what can only be described as masochistic fury, but he makes it plain just before they die or commit suicide that they have in reality triumphed. So, this is about the plot construction of Eugene O'Neill, and now we have to look at O'Neill's art of characterization. So, in the next video, we'll be discussing O'Neill's art of characterization. Thank you very much for listening. May God bless you. Mm.